I started off saying I don't want to do this, but now I'm looking at creating value in a certain way, in a way where I can earn some money, in a way where I'm creating impact, in a way which is important to the company in some way. So, what is that sweet spot?
I feel that this will create value or create impact either financially, either in lives of the employees, lives of the customers, and me actually designing something around that. So I think that transition happens as person grows into multiple industries or like more impactful industries and seniority in the organization. And as and when that happens, your inner drive to actually work for more impactful roles or create more value for people, that every day that passion or that urge to create that uh, becomes higher and higher.
Welcome to today's session hosted by Pivot on breaking into high impact strategic roles at top companies. So, we are very glad to have two brilliant speakers with us today. And we have been trying to actually get this one on the road for quite some time. So, very, very excited to do this. They are already here with us, they are behind the screen. We're just building up some mystery and some excitement, and we'll have them with us in just a second. Before I do that, I just want to share that today's session will primarily be a discussion for the first half an hour, approximately, and then we will take up your questions as well. So please feel free to share your questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to take them up for Dhruv and Ashish by one. So, okay, without further ado, I would like to bring both my guests up here on stage with me. Welcome to the session today. Thank you so much for doing this. How are you both doing?
Hi, Arjun. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us join in for this conversation. Doing great. Thanks a lot. And good to be in this conversation with Ashish.
Thank you, Arjun, for having me, and just looking forward to this conversation with Dhruv and you.
Maybe we can just do a round of intros quickly, and then I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to catch up on the key topics here. So I'll just go first. For those who don't know me, I am the founder at Pivot. And at Pivot, what we do is help people make smooth and successful career transitions. That means anytime you're thinking about changing not just your company, but let's say your role, your industry, your level in the organization. So any key element shift or inflection point in your career is where we come in. And our goal is to help you land your target role. Right? There are a couple of other things we do, like one-on-one personalized mentorships to ensure that you have the right kind of advice and support from the right people along the way. But there are other things as well, which we'll cover through the course of the session. And next, it would be great if, Dhruv, we can hear from you a little bit about your background and career journey so far.
Thanks, Arjun. Um, so I have been a hotelier in a previous avatar. My background's that I did graduation in hospitality, and thereafter I worked with IHCL. Had a brief stint with them in sales, and that was the time when I was preparing for an MBA, and did an MBA in marketing from SIBM Pune. And since then, right from the time I did an internship during the MBA days to now, I've been with the Godrej Industries Group. During this time, I've worked in different group companies across businesses, right from real estate to consumer products to now at the corporate center. And other than working in different businesses, I've also worked in different functions. So from sales, marketing, brand strategy, corporate affairs to now corporate brand. Um, that's a bit about me.
Perfect. Sounds exciting. Sounds like a lot of different hats have been donned. So we'll get into it soon. And next, Ashish. Yeah, please go ahead, Ashish. If you could share a bit about yourself, that would be great.
Sure. So I come from like I'm based. I started my journey out of Calcutta, coming from a very traditional family. Chartered accountancy was the default choice. So it was either family business or chartered accountancy. I pursued both, and then I did my graduation from St Xavier's, Calcutta. Did my chartered accountancy. Also did parallel courses like CFA, FRM, CS. Then got a chance to work with Goldman Sachs at their Bangalore office. That was like a mid-level investment banking. Did that for a couple of years, and then wanted to move to a more front-end role, but at the same time wanted to have those skill set with it. Default option was MBA. Did my MBA from IIM Calcutta. During that stint, had during those 2 years, got a chance to spend 6 months at Germany University of Cologne. Interned with a private equity firm called Kaza Capital, a homegrown private equity firm. From campus, got placed at Boston Consulting in their management consulting profile. However, COVID stuck, so did a brief stint with the national NIIF, which is the sovereign fund of India. Then did a couple of years with BCG. Then did almost 18 months at the president's office at Tata Digital, which is like the holding company for the super app Tata Neo. And of late have been acting as a consultant in the Middle East for finance and real estate projects. But yeah, great to be here. And this is largely what I have done in the last 10 to 12 years.
Amazing. Great. So I think that is very helpful because it sets the stage for the opening topic that I have in mind, and it's something which we get asked quite often today. So when people come to me today, a lot of times they're asked why they want to transition to the target role that they have in mind or what they are looking for at this stage in their career, right? And there's no one answer usually, Dhruv and Ashish. I'm sure like if people talk to you about it also, they have myriad of reasons for why they want to change their career paths or even change companies for that matter. But the one factor which is definitely gaining a lot of prevalence and importance out there, and I even wrote about it in my post today, it's not just the traditional factors like I want to increase my pay package, I want to work with a top brand. I mean, those are common, they have remained common for a long time. But the one that is really, really gaining more importance is how do I create more impact in my career, right? And that is something which is very fascinating to me because, it's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy theory where, once you have achieved your basic physiological factors, security factors,
Yeah.
social belonging factors, then you get to self-esteem and self-actualization, right? And I think India is at this critical juncture where there are a lot of people still at the bottom of the pyramid, but there are more and more people who are making their way through the middle and the top. So I think that's one of the reasons we are hearing these kind of questions today. So I want to ask you before we dive into how to actually even land such a role and what does impact really mean. Um, Maybe Dhruv, we can start with you. How do you actually identify roles at companies where you can create high impact? And in terms of the definition of it, what does high impact mean to you?
Sure. No, thanks, Arjun, and that's a very important point. As you realize, when you grow into your career and you get into something that you've been doing, um, that question becomes increasingly important. But I'd actually like to go back to a time when you're starting off your career and you're making certain choices. I think we tend to think that when you start off, we should have all the answers. We should have the answers to what we want to do, what will create high impact. Many times we don't have the answers, and a lot of us, and I suspect, amongst us also a lot of people who are on this call, you actually end up making choices going down the path of elimination. To say that I don't know what I want to do, but I definitely know this isn't something I want to do, right? So you go down that path, and I feel a lot of times we feel like you should have the answers, but it's okay if you don't have the answers. But not knowing what you want to do is also an answer, right, in some way. And therefore you go down a certain path, and I feel that once you go down that path and you start taking on certain responsibilities, the question of impact comes in there. To say that, okay, now I'm doing this and I want to create, the question of creating value then starts coming in. You then look at concepts like ikigai to say that, okay, where is it that I started off saying I don't want to do this, but now I'm looking at creating value in a certain way, in a way where I can earn some money, in a way where I'm creating impact, in a way which is important to the company in some way. So what is that sweet spot? And I think that is a journey that one usually goes through in their career. So it's okay to begin with. I want to say that it's okay if you don't have the answers when you start off, and you figure that out along the way. And I think it's also how you define impact, right? In the work area that you're in, impact for you could be different from how my organization's looking at it, or what I feel is impact. Is impact really who's the key stakeholder really, right? So if you're looking at You know, if you're in the social sector, impact could mean different in some way. If you're, you know, you working in the financial sector, impact in the definition of it could differ in some way. So I think defining what impact is to you uh, also makes a difference in something like this. So these are the 2 points that I want to share as we start talking about this idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Dhruv, before I go to Ashish, just one quick question for you as a follow up to what you just said. What does impact mean to you?
Impact to me means something that's long term, and I think um, I look at it in a way where I've done certain roles in marketing, and I realized that there's a certain joy I was getting from performance marketing roles, and I was looking at, say, the number of leads I was getting, the number of impressions I was getting on something, the kind of reach I was getting on some of the initiatives, some of the posts, and then I started working on brand, which is more about what is the long lasting vision or purpose of the brand. Why are you doing what you're doing? So for me, impact is actually having this sort of uh, idea of why we are in the business, or why I'm in the business of what I'm trying to do, and where is it going to take me or take us, versus I'm here today at X and I want to go to Y, right? So how do you go to Y plus 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 is how I would like to define what impact means to me. So in a nutshell, it's long term, meaningful, purpose driven, versus something which is short term, important, but may not be as purposeful, or something that you find too much reasoning in.
Yeah, no, I think that's very insightful. Great. We'll bring Ashish into the conversation as well. Ashish, so similar question to you, maybe in a slightly different manner. So, Dhruv pointed out very nicely, why people might be thinking more and more about, making an impact in their career and what can impact potentially mean to them. Now, when you are early in your career, let's say in your 20s, there is probably less potential to make an impact. Even though you make an impact, it's not like you don't, but you get more agency as you rise in your career. So based on your experience, when you started out versus where you are today, have you seen the ability to create impact evolve over a period of time as well? Um, and if so, like how does impact as a definition evolve for me as I rise through my career? I know it's a slightly more nuanced question, so let me know if you want me to rephrase or re-ask, but please go ahead.
So honestly, when like someone is very early in your career, let's say, or when I just became a CA and started to look out for jobs, so the only impact I was trying to create was the impact on my personal bank balance. And so
Right.
as in the first couple of years, or in, let's say even in the first year, when that started to get satisfied or that started to get fulfilled through Goldman Sachs, that's like when the first layer of the Maslow's hierarchy is taken care of, you start to think of better and bigger things. And then, let's say, if I talk about specifically myself, my first year Goldman got to learn a lot. My like every year, every month, the salary is coming pretty good for a 21, 22-year old. But then, as you move to the second year, like I've spent 12 months at Goldman, and then you realize that, okay, is it something? Am I actually fulfilling my entire capabilities? Is this the best I can do? Do I even have the opportunities to actually make or create value or create an impact? Right. So that's when you decide to look, okay, what do I actually want to do? What Okay, this is something, as Dhruv mentioned earlier, this is something which I definitely not want to do. Now, what potential things I want to do? So at that particular point you realize that, okay, who is changing the world or who is actually doing a lot of attractive stuff? So the first things that will come to your mind is either like the P and IBs are there, where if they have worked on a particular thing for a couple of months, you actually see that the transaction has gone through, it's all across the news. So either a financial impact is created, or if you join a startup, let's say for example Zepto, you realize that they have actually just changed the entire landscape of how people shop, the definition of convenience, the definition of grocery, the grocery. So either you create some financial impact directly, indirectly. Directly could be either you have just created an amazing product, but there could be indirect impact through marketing. You did like amazing marketing campaign, more leads came in, sales went higher, or you actually change lives through some point or the other. So even back at Tata New, the primary focus of how do we revolutionize how customers shop to our like in general in India. So it was about like people coming at one stop, getting access to everything, and probably their data used in a much better manner to help them shop better. So for me, earlier it was about money, and then it became about actually creating value or creating a difference or creating an impact. Earlier in your career, as in like the way an organizational hierarchy is there, you actually don't get a lot of scope to create impact, largely because you are that analyst who is just focused on the execution. Someone else has already decided that this has to be done. You are the person executing that. As in when you grow there, become you are enabled to actually be the person who decides that okay, this can we do, this can this be done, and then there's a team to support you. So I think from my journey, let's say starting at Goldman Sachs, where I was actually the person executing it in a non-significantly value or impactful role, to me coming to let's say Boston Consulting or Tata Digital, where I can actually decide that okay, this is I feel that this will create value or create impact either financially, either in lives of the employees, lives of the customers, and me actually designing something around that. So I think that transition happens as person grows into multiple industries or like more impactful industries and seniority in the organization. And as and when that happens, your inner drive to actually work for more impactful roles or create more value for people, that every day that passion or that urge to create that uh, becomes higher and higher. So I
Yeah,
think that has been a significant transition for me.
got it. No, I think very well pointed out. I think there are different types of evolution that happen in your career. I think one is more in terms of the one is more in terms of the agency or seniority that you have. You're able to drive more impact because you just control more things in your work, in your field of work and your team and your overall organization. Like you might have larger resources to work with. And I think the other thing, as both of you pointed out, that over a period of time you start realizing where you can drive the biggest impact as an individual, right? Because early on you're mostly focused on learning yourself, right? You don't know much about the professional field, and it's mostly recouping the investment that you have made in your career. Ashish, thanks for saying that. It's important, right? It's real. People have spent a lot of time and energy, like for years and years, putting in their education. So it's important to recoup that investment, and that's okay. There's no guilt around that. But after you've done that, a lot of people want to, give back and make sure they're impacting hundreds, thousands, millions of lives. So I think that journey can happen when you realize if one domain or another industry is better for you, and it's okay to make those switches over a period of time. So thanks for highlighting that. Dhruv,
Arjun, if
something
I
to
may ask,
yeah.
yes, I wanted to ask you, Arjun, having followed your journey also and, spoken a number of times now, um, how would you look at impact? And has that been a big factor in how you've shaped your entrepreneurial journey?
Thanks for asking me, Dhruv. Usually, I don't get asked questions on these sessions, but thank you for asking me. It makes me feel more valued. But I would say, see, for me, impact is about how many lives you touch positively, and the focus is more on the last word, which is not the how many lives part, the positive part, right? I think it was to some extent the upbringing I had, and I think your nurture from your parents, your society really shapes you in terms of defining what impact or what value creation means for you. A lot of times I have also focused on firstly taking care of myself. Get that promotion, get that pay, get to that company, or get that title. So all of those things do matter. But ultimately, where I am today and where I have been since I started Pivot, it's all about understanding grassroots level problem for individuals, because in my prior career I used to help a lot of organizations solve their business focused challenges, and that is very meaningful too, right? A lot of people still do that. For me personally, it just felt I couldn't see those the solutions and the value that I was creating, I didn't see that percolate to the individual level a lot of times, right? It remained at the business level. And for me, that was important, but I found more meaning and purpose in solving individual level problems. So right now, even though we are building Pivot in a B2C model, a lot of people have come to me and said, look what's happening in edtech. You should think about B2B. And I don't know if it's foolish of me or if it's bold of me. I don't know which one it is, but I have not ventured into that space so much because the whole mission around Pivot is to solve grassroots level individual problems. So yeah, I think that's how it means. And the other part, which both of you have touched on, is the long termism factor. I think that is very very important, and it kind of evolves over a period of time. So I may not be able to make an impact right away, but as long as I am moving in that direction and I'm overall working towards an end goal that will help me create value for as many people as possible, I think that really is important factor as well.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a fabulous point, Arjun. On not getting bogged down with the whole thought of, I have to create an impact today, I have to create it tomorrow. I think it's the journey, right? And that realization is very important. Again, great point. Thanks.
Yes, I think we all have touched on that individually, and I think it's something very very critical. Thanks for bringing it up first yourself, Dhruv. So we'll move on to the next point here. Um, so yeah, this is another thing. Again, this is something which I feel it has become a very hot button issue in the last couple of years, especially since the technology trends have started advancing very very rapidly. So a lot of people are thinking about their own skill set and how they should not just future proof themselves, but acquire the right skills to create the most amount of impact they can. Sometimes it's rooted in the desire to impress your manager and your coworkers. Sometimes it's just that you want to feel like you have the best capability and you're a competitive person, so you want to be in the top 10% of the field or something like that. So today there are many many skills that people can take up. How do you identify the right skills for those strategic roles or the high impact roles? How do you identify which skills you should really focus on? And once you have identified them, Dhruv and Ashish, like what is your secret of strengthening your skill set on those fronts? Ashish, we'll start with you on this one first, if that's okay.
Sure. Arjun. So, for me, I have or even when I hire people for my team, I have never really focused a lot on specific hardcore technical skills. Yes, tech savviness is something I definitely want in people, or I definitely try to have it in me. That anytime a new technology is coming, any new thing is coming, which is like in the market and can be there or can make your job easy, can be an
Mhm.
enabler. So I definitely look for tech savviness in people, but I actually don't want them that, okay, I just need a tech nerd out there. But at the same time, the key skills which I'm looking for, and something, these are things which like normally people can't just do a course and get. The first one is problem solving. So whenever I'm looking, or even like when I consider myself, any person which I have in my team should be a problem solver. So I like there's a reason I've hired him. If the things could have been done very easily, I could have done it, right? Or like anyone in the team could have done it. I wouldn't have needed a specific person for that. So problem solving, be it any type of problem, this guy should roll up his sleeves and say, okay, I'm a problem solver and I will solve it for you, and comes up with really good solutions and actually executes that. The second thing which I seriously look at people is like uh, your communication, be it written, be it your oral communication. Again, this is like people believe or feel that it is very hygienic, or ये तो सब में ही होता है, but it's like one of the most underrated skills. The third is people management. Be it, this could be your subordinates, this could be your colleagues, this could be your client, this could be your manager, partners. And the last one is practicality. Whatever the person in front of me is saying, it's good to be ambitious, it's good to be a person who can have a very big vision, but this is the person talking practical things. Is he practical in his approach? So again, there are a lot of technical skills which are required, which varies job to job. But overall, in whenever I've hired, let's say even as a management consultant, or even when I was at a president's office, or even till date, if I hire people beneath me, I know that okay, these are roles which are really high impactful, very lean teams, very high paid jobs, most of them. So these are the skills which I feel I require in the people in my team there, or like even these are the areas where I continuously want to improve myself, so that as and when I make the next shift or make the next pivot, I know that okay, the person is hiring the right person in form of me, because I actually have those skills and mastering it each every day.
What I was just saying, Ashish, is you identified all the right roles and a lot of right skills. I mean, in terms of what people in strategic roles and high impact roles are typically required to have. How do you generally go about uh, gaining those skills or enhancing those skills? Because today there are so many of these short courses that people are taking, right? But on the employer side, there's not that much value attached to these short courses. And then, when you're learning on the job, while it's very impactful, it's also very vague because you don't have specific, measurable outcomes always that are tied to specific skills. So it's more organically happening. How do you generally acquire or enhance these skills that you're talking about?
So largely two things. First is a very cliche answer, and probably if someone would have said to me this answer 4 5 years ago, I would have been like, "यार फिर बेवकूफ बना रहा है या हाई बंदा ज्ञान देके जा रहा है."
Yeah.
First is reading, not reading storybooks, but reading business case studies. As simple as recently, I read a book on the TikTok boom. So till now, my entire life, I have been cursing TikTok. Oh, यार क्या बना दिया? But when I read that book, I was like, okay, this is something genius. So the more you read, the more you know, and the more things you can actually understand. So like it's very easy when someone gives you a problem. Instead of when like the first thing is yaar ye kar lete. So when you read a lot, you know that okay, there's a reason that these people did not do these 10 things. Now what can I bring beyond these 10 things? So reading is
Mhm.
really important. Any sort of like news, business case studies, Harvard Business Review, book on people experience, books on people journeys, companies journeys. And the second thing is which is like one of the most underrated skill again, is structuring and frameworks. So if you have any problems, or if you actually like working on anything, till the time you can structure it properly, you are able to do that. The things which I actually do to improve my structuring, like from a interview perspectives or like from general life perspective, is again there is this videos of Victor Chang. There are books written by him where he actually teaches you how to break your problems. Again, he does not give you a degree or a course that okay, now you are framework certified person. But when you read that, you know that okay, this is the first stepping stone. And when you start using that frameworks in your life throughout, then you realize that okay, gradually you are reaching there where you can actually, whenever like whatever is given to you, you start, your brain automatically starts breaking it down into steps, and then you try
Right.
to solve for each of the problems. So
Right.
basic things as even if I, let's say if I am sitting in the Gulf right now, tomorrow the next 2 days are my weekends. So what I will do is tonight I will actually be preparing that okay, the things of activity need to be done in the next 2 days. I will break it
Mm.
into 6 buckets, and then actually identify that okay, who is responsible for it? Is it me who is doing it? Is it a friend? Is it my family member? Is it my wife? So again, this would have sounded very stupid to me 4 years ago, but as in when I have read more and more, I have studied more and more, I realized that okay, everything needs to be structured, has a framework in place, and then you can actually have a lot of visibility, which makes it very easy to solve for things. So I think
Yeah.
reading a lot and like probably having that framework or structure approach in your life, I think that really helps a lot.
I love that answer, Ashish. You know why? Because I think it shows a very deep level of first principle thinking. We are going back to the roots. The two things that you said is something that I think humans started to do very, very early on. It's not like newest technology or, most recent trends. I think those are helpful to understand too. But I think I really like this part because it's also accessible to anybody and everybody. You don't have to be the richest person to read books or to identify right frameworks. One thing I'll just say before Dhruv bringing you up here is I think, Ashish, the second part that you mentioned about utilizing tools and structures and framework, I think it's actually really catching on. I think people are really starting to actually do that, because now, sometimes I help people prepare for interviews when they're trying to land a new job. A lot of times we come across certain questions which ask about how they navigate certain typical career problems like meeting tight deadlines and so forth. And a lot of times now the answers that I'm hearing, they are evolving, and they talk about these proven structured frameworks out there like Eisenhower matrix. I'm sure you might have heard of that one. And it's something like I didn't used to hear even 3-4 years ago, but suddenly there are at least 5 out of 10 people who are talking about the Eisenhower matrix to me, and that shows that I think that awareness around structured thinking is becoming more popular. Dhruv, yeah, I think same question to you. How do you identify what skills to acquire and enhance for creating that impact? And once you have, what do you do to actually enhance your skill set?
No, Arjun, I think just such relevant points shared by Ashish over here, and I think uh, you know, one you need to begin with. I think there has to be this realization that you have to take charge of your learning and upskilling, right? I I I agree, Arjun. Things have changed. People have evolved in the way they answer questions, approach some of these questions and challenges. But in a corporate setup, I still see this notion that when L&D comes and says that okay, you have to do this course, and we've partnered with this with the Coursera or this university, and you have to do it. The mindset a lot of times is still that okay, if I don't do this, there's an escalation mail that'll go to my manager. So I think it's very, very important that you need to take charge of your learning, not because an escalation mail will go somewhere. Because if you don't do it, 5 years from now, you might be like, I wish I'd done that when I had that opportunity. And two, if you don't have that opportunity from the organization, you invest in it yourself. I think the avenues you have now versus, say, maybe 10 years back, 15 years back, it's not just about an online course right now. It's also about the kind of training and coaching you can really get online, right? Just came across this platform the other day, Tiger Hall, and they have this whole concept of thinkfluencers. And of course, a lot of these programs where you're not necessarily reading from a case study online or going through different slides, clicking next, but people who've really done stuff telling you what they've done, right? And you taking some experiences from that and try to adopt it in your day to day life. But to your question, Arjun, how do you identify like what you really need to do? I think it's also about really having that foresight into what the trends are in your line of work and business, and
Mhm.
not like a macro level thing, but like specifically if you're looking at content, and then you look at it and say that okay, um, a lot of copywriters today use Chat GPT. Grammarly is pre-installed in a lot, so it's about saying that okay, this is a trend. Many people when they hire, they look down on it in a way to say that I want to see your skills and not what you're doing in an automated way and how you're using that. But it's a way to marry both. I think that is a really, really specialized skill to say that look, I'm the person who has the context, and I know there are tools that can help me today. I have the unique ability, if I use technology, to marry both and give you something which is a superior output, which is context driven, but in quicker time because technologies help me to do that. Right. And I see some people do that. I try to do that myself in my line of work. And I feel that, being able to spot a trend and put some context to it really sort of adds that extra zinc factor to it, Arjun.
Yeah, I think, Dhruv, lot of important points there, to be honest. I think the one you just made about marrying technology with human driven context, I think that is by far one of the most important things that I feel like it will only gain importance in coming times, given the pace at which technology is advancing. And I have seen, I don't know if you both have seen, feel free to share your thoughts. I've seen a lot of people, especially, I don't know if there's a bias when you're more experienced, because there's that हमने अपने ज़माने में ये किया था, हमने अपने ज़माने में. So there is that bias sometimes to say, the new trends are fads and they're going to kind of disappear, and there are certain just kind of foundational things which will always remain true. And I think some of those points are valid, but I do feel like, for example, AI is not just a buzzword. Like, it is real, and it is changing the way we work in very, very tangible ways. So you can't fight gravity, right? You can't say that I have been writing on my own for hundreds of years, I will never touch AI. Sure, maybe you can do that, but you are going to be then competing with a lot of other people, and with technology over a period of time. And that's your personal choice if you want to keep it that way. What are your thoughts on some of this, Ashish or Dhruv? Anybody who would like to come up, I'll bring them up. Ashish, you want to take a stab?
Sure. So one thing which I have I have seen a significant difference between India and compared to the rest part, or especially the Europe, the US side of the people thing is, in India there is an inherent uh, aversion to change, and after a certain point, like that initial aversion leads to the fact that okay, let's say the AI has been like the trending thing in it's for around like 3 4 5 years now. So 3 4 years people like this kind, like this set of people, they were actually like, oh, this won't last, human brains. They would pick up single example where the AI gave a wrong reply on the Indigo customer service, and then they
Mhm.
would be like just circulating that and laughing on it. This won't work out. Two
Mhm.
years later, now they have realized that okay, AI is the thing, but now they also realize the fact that in this trend they are 2 years behind. So
Mhm.
having that courage to accept that and actually start learning AI even from this point, that's like a difficult choice, which I have seen like most of people in India. Again, like a lot of people do it, but most people in India still continue to avert it. That okay, my five, like there are few years in my career, the next generation will face this problem. So that's one of the biggest, I think, reasons which are the difference I've seen. But also one of the other reasons this people don't, a lot of people don't trust or start using this is that there would be a bunch of people who, instead of using this technology as enablers, they will try to get themselves replaced by these technologies. So as simple as like a person needs to, a copywriter needs to write a piece or an article. So instead of actually using the chat gpt in a manner which further enhances his skills, his writing skills, the person has started to use it as a his replacement. That okay, if I give a command, can this throw me an article, should can I pass it on? So I think this instances further create a barrier that even if like those senior people start trusting this, whenever they see examples of this in their vicinity, in their companies, the trust factor starts to go down. But like the better thing from everyone's perspective would be that they realize that okay, this is not a replacement for anyone, this is an enabler. And the more
Mhm.
enablers than like chat gpt, artificial intelligence would be just one of the multiple enablers which will be coming in the upcoming years. So rather than trying to push it away from us, or like rather than not endoing it, how can I endow more and more such enablers to further exemplify or amplify my work? Because that experience difference will always be there, that knowledge depth will always, the difference will always be there. So if you add a layer of technology enablers or any new trend enablers to it, the output will be like to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's a key point and makes a lot of sense. Dhruv, you want to add on anything to that?
Yeah, yes, Arjun, I think it's you spoke about resistance um, to talking about some of these things, that especially among some senior people. I think I also feel that conversations need to go beyond the shallow surface level. AI is going to change, AI is coming. I think let's get into the details. I think when people use these jargons, sometimes then you go for these events, I think there's a part of you that says, okay, can we talk about some examples? Can we, of course, it's there. Okay, let's move beyond that now. And let's
Yeah.
talk about what we've been talking about right now to say that, okay, how do you marry the two? Right. And I think that's important, not just for conversations happening at that level, but even as candidates, Arjun. When you're talking, you're saying that I upskilled myself and I did a course in this new technology which is coming in. I think the conversations need to happen around once I did that, what was I able to do? And what was it that we did? Like you said, Arjun, a lot of times, you know, and I think it's ingrained in us that we tend to do a program and a course thinking that the certificate is going to come in handy.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how, I mean, that's just conditioning in some way. But I think for once, just forget, okay? As certificate from X and Y, probably in a context like this, will have the same meaning. What have you done with that, with a skill like that? And are you bringing that up in conversations? I'm at least the conversations I have where people talk about, some of the new age skills and certifications. It's treated more like that little badge that you have, that I have done this, and my next question is always like, and
Hmm.
so what happened after that, right? And
Yeah.
so you needn't have an answer every time, but after doing that, there must have been some difference, even in how you are doing things on a day-to-day basis. And I think those are the conversations that really need to happen at a candidate level and also at senior levels, where we're going to the next level and saying that, you know, let's get into the details now.
Yeah. Um, Absolutely, 100% agree with both of you. I think the conversation definitely needs to move forward, beyond just a superficial surface level thing. Um, and I also feel, sometimes resistance does get in the way, and it's okay for some people to take their time. But I think we also need to, how AI sometimes hallucinate, which it does. I think people also have this tendency to also hallucinate, where they um, don't focus on the facts and how technology is actually able to drive tangible results. And it may disrupt you, right? That's the biggest aversion to change, as Ashish, you were pointing out, that it disrupts us, and people like that, that warm blanket of familiarity. I like things that I know. But when you are doing this continuous learning, as it has become a sort of a buzzword, I think it makes you more prone to acquiring and enhancing your skill set, and in that way less averse to change. And that's why I think, learning sometimes is just helpful. In addition to giving you tangible skills, keeping you fluid and making sure you don't get too entrenched into your comfort zone, because your field can get disrupted at any point in time today. So I think a lot of important points here. I had promised that we will be taking up some questions from our audience here. So we have a few questions that have started trickling in. So I want to segue to that and bring a couple of questions here on screen and see, who would be the right person to address that. So one of the questions that we have here, and I'm showing it on the screen, I hope everybody can view it, is from Hitesh. So it's a, I think, good question about how to break into a strategic role in your industry. He's a IT and tech sector professional and in a customer facing role, but believes that he can do more in a strategic role. So how does one define a strategic role? Does it mean necessarily handling more revenue responsibilities? Like, what does strategic role really mean to you? Um, I think, Ashish, if you want, we can start with you on this.
Um, so for me, the definition of strategic role is like the person, the captain who is navigating the ship. It can be at different levels. So as simple as, let's say, if I take the example of Swiggy, it could be like there could be a strategic person who is sitting at, how do I manage a hub of delivery people? How can I manage a city? How can I manage Swiggy Instamart? How can I manage the ads which are running? So like there is a like different levels at which the strategy, a guy would be there, or the strategic role would be there. So anywhere, like there is an operational layer to it, but anytime when you are actually determining that, okay, what does my team do, where is that operational layer going, through which direction is it happening, what are we like, what's my vision to it, I think that's like a definition of a strategy role for me. Can vary very significantly in an organization from department to levels to different thing. But yes, I think anywhere where you are in charge of navigating the ship or deciding the direction on which your team or a particular division or a particular level will actually proceed, I think that is, in my opinion, a strategic role. I define it in that manner. how do you break into one? Firstly, one of the major differences between a technical role and a strategic role is normally technical. Like within a strategy there would be multiple functions going on, even if it's like a 5 7 10 member team. Within that, within that, below that strategic level or strategic role, like there would be people who are doing different kinds of operations. So the first thing is you should have a clear understanding of what are the different operations, how do they talk to each other. And the moment you think that yes, over and above this, I can manage my team well, I have a very clear vision, I can solve problems, I am pretty good with people, I think you are almost ready to move to a strategic role. Then it's just about identifying that opportunity and ensuring that the team or the company is able to move you to that.
Got it. Dhruv, anything that you would like to share?
Yes, I would just add to the point that Hitesh, a second part of his question that I see is that does it mean taking up more revenue responsibilities? Yes, it does, directly or indirectly. So if you're looking at something which is more long term and but may not have, you may not directly be handling, have a P&L responsibility, but is it strategic? Yes, because you're solving for an industry problem, you are maybe solving for a growth problem, you're solving for a customer issue that costs you a lot of rupees or dollars every year. And it's maybe may not be a challenge that is specific to your company, but maybe an industry, because you've emphasized on industry, Hitesh, in your question. And I think a good way of really looking at this is to focus on the term industry and not specifically your company. The moment you look at the broader sector, if you're in the airline industry, for example, and you look at, your challenge is not how do I make X airline this, but how do you look at it as an industry to say how do I make the airline industry and more people want to actually fly from destination A to B instead of using a train. I think that then makes you a little bit more strategic in your thinking as well. The way I would say you want to break into something like this is to not necessarily just look out for roles that come your way in your organization, but I think to also project yourself as someone who's strategic. And this may not always be in your day-to-day work, but I know people talk a lot about a word that's often abused these days. It's called personal branding. But since we are on LinkedIn right now and talking about it, I think it's also about what's your point of view on something that's happening in your industry, which could have an impact in a positive or a negative manner. Do you have a point of view? And sometimes it's just about expressing your point of view on that topic and on that subject, and doing it consistently and showing up, expressing. If I am in that industry and I know you belong to that industry, and I see your way of thinking come through again and again and again in that, would I view you as someone who's strategic regardless of what you're doing today? I would look at you and I'd say, Hitesh, yes, you know what? He looks at things in a way which makes me feel like, yeah, there's a bent of mind which is looking at problem solving in the industry and solving for this. And these are issues that I grapple with in my company within the same industry. Would I consider you strategic? I would. Would that in the long run open opportunities for you because you're viewed that way? Possibly.
I think very comprehensively addressed. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. We have a couple of questions rolling in, so I'll just keep bringing them up. I think, Dhruv, this one is specifically for you, and then I think the couple that we'll have Ashish address as well. So, all right, let me show it here. This is from Sajal, and his question is basically centered around somebody who might be a late bloomer, somebody who has started uh, really finding their footing slightly later in their career. And what can they do to break into the kind of roles that Dhruv, you and Ashish are in currently? Again, high impact strategic roles at these iconic brands like Godrej and Tata. Um, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, very honest thoughts here, and thanks for the question, Sajal. But very honest thoughts is, I would say that one needs to be patient, and I think, and to begin with, uh, I think look at not the designation, the salary, the position, but look at it as from the point of view that this person is doing that, and this is the kind of role. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that role itself might evolve. But what I'm saying is that you want to do X, and you have to just keep out of the window how much time it might take for me to do that, and what that journey might be. I think that mindset to say that I'll get there and I want to do that is very important to begin with. Um, and I don't want to be like utopian here to say that, hey, you know what, it's never too late. I do believe that for a lot of things in life, it's never too late. But I think one also has to be realistic to say that there are several ways to get to a certain point in life. Early on in your career, when you're trying to get there are multiple elements. You're able to give more time, you have less family responsibilities. Luck plays a lot of role, but luck can play a role later on in life as well. The point that I'm trying to make is that focus on the area of work where you want to create an impact, and be willing to go through that journey and not compare yourself, right? You'll get there at some point. Your path, your pace might be different. Luck may come in at a place where it didn't come in for someone else at certain other point, an area in the journey. And you may want to pivot even when you feel that, hey, I want to do this. What's there to say that when you're in your 30s you don't feel like, okay, I'm going down this path, now I have to do this? You really want to bog yourself down with that pressure to say that I've started late, now I must nail down that thing? No, right? You go with that mindset that this is what I want to do. You could still change and don't compare, and then have that the whole idea of really choosing your pace at what you want to do, your ikigai, Sajal.
Perfect. All right. So, couple of more questions. Let's keep them going. I think this is just a point that Malika has shared here, about the importance of hiring teams to acknowledge and value candidates' potential and urge to learn and pick up skills. I think um, it's just the point we were discussing earlier about the importance of acquiring new skills and driving that point home among your teams, perhaps by acknowledging when somebody is taking a step in that direction. I think that's a very good point. You can drive certain behaviors by incentivizing and rewarding them. I think everybody here would agree. And let's go to our next question here. We have a question from Shafia about how can I break into strategic role, do impactful work. I'm currently a freelance academic writer. Um, Ashish, you write a lot on LinkedIn. You're not an academic writer, but in some sense of the word, you are a writer. What would you tell Shafia about her question?
So I will give a very a short. I'll just share a short story from my Tata days. Again, this is not a LinkedIn-driven fake story. This is actually true and like probably hadn't been shared anywhere. So we were trying to pilot our before we went live. We were trying to have those pilot moments where we are running the app for 5 lakh people, 10 lakh people, and when we launched the app, in the first week, the app crashed, the customer experience issues were there. So we had one person writing mails to the CEO that yes, I am an ardent user of your four of your companies or four of your subsidiaries. I feel that okay, this is the XYZ problem you have. This is the ABC problem which the customers are facing. Now, these are the 3 4 ways you can solve each of these problems. And those mails like there were multiple mails as such, like 6 page long, 7 page long, but every time he brought up a new issue that is either a problem today or could be a problem tomorrow, and then he also suggested solutions for it. When we received the first couple of mails, because whenever a mail goes to the CEO, it came to us that यार क्या कर रहे हो तुम लोग, अब ये भी आके बता रहे हैं हमें कि क्या करना है, तुम लोग नहीं कर पा रहे हो. But by the time we had the fifth and sixth mails, we realized that first, this guy knows our company, our app much better than what we do. And the second thing is that this is a person I must have in my team, because whatever if he has done on an unpaid basis, even if he starts to do 10% of that once he's on a paid basis, my app and my customer experience will significantly improve. So this is one thing when I realized that okay, to actually make people feel that you are actually worth something, be it in like terms of a high strategic role or a technical role, you need not have a particular degree. You need not actually have that foot in the door within the company. You have multiple platforms. You just need to showcase your skill, your talent which is actually required by that particular job role in a particular, in a like in any of the platforms which you have. This could be like writing mails to the team member. This could be writing, having a one-to-one discussion, as simple as just having that LinkedIn post where okay, Swiggy is going for his IPO, it's lagging behind Zomato, but these are the 3 4 very key strategic ways I feel Swiggy can catch up on Zomato. Again, there would be multiple posts on that. So again, if you give common answers, no additional marks for it. But yes, if you came up with a very differentiated answer, believe me, 9 out of 10 times someone in Swiggy would have read that, would have already taken it to Shri Harsha that yaar ye baat mein dum hai, and probably there are bright chances that those people would be reaching out to you either with an interview opportunity or to actually discuss it further. So yes, and given that you all are already a writer, you actually have a very amazing platform with you. So yes, wherever you think that yes, this is the industry, this is the role where you can create a lot of impact, just probably start writing about it. How do you think that value creation can happen there? What do you think should be the strategy for a particular XYZ company in a XYZ field? So like, let's say if you're writing 10 things about it, definitely 5 will catch eyes of people, and more often than not, they will be reaching out to you to understand things better. And if they actually feel that yes, you have it in you for that role, they will mostly be interviewing you or offering you that.
Perfect. I think a lot of good insights there. Thanks for sharing that. I do agree that, today, to some extent, the field has been democratized with not just social media. I think even if you're not on social media and you're not comfortable putting your thoughts out there, I think you can, find connections, you can find people via email also. Um, and, you can obviously DM in LinkedIn if you don't want to necessarily create content. But the goal is to go above and beyond. Don't just depend on the traditional things that you might have been doing or others might be doing in the careers, because when you make average efforts, you get average outcomes. So you have to go above and beyond. We have a couple other questions. There's one question which I believe we have discussed at a high level earlier. If you would like to address anything, Dhruv, especially if you have a opinion here, feel free to share about the fact that the explosion of tech courses has led to its value erosion, and by value erosion they mean acceptance rate among companies is getting diminished. So, anything that you want to share with regard to not just tech courses, but a plethora of these online certifications that are available to everybody? I won't name names, but we know who they are. Um, should people still invest in them? Is it a value add, or how do you perceive it? Like, how does Godrej, for example, perceive these kind of certifications internally? Does it make a difference at all?
I think it takes it's a two-way street, really, right? Um, um, partake in these courses and enroll for the certifications, but I think it's also about what you are able to demonstrate after doing that. And just coming back to that point, that I think there's a lot of value in them, because I think the quality of some of these courses also, vis-a-vis what it was many years back, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. If you ask me, my personal experience has been that as well. We partner at Godrej, we partner with a lot of universities as well for some of these programs. But I think, as is the case with a lot of trainings, as is the case with a lot of offsites, as is the case with a lot of learning interventions, you do that in that Josh, you do that, and then what? And I think that's a answer, that only we can give, the person who's really participated in all these things. And that's I think that's becoming so important, that if you are able to do that, instead of harping on where you have done this training and certification from, versus how you are applying it in what you're doing and what you did in your last organization and what you intend to do going forward, I think it's that's going to be key. Unfortunately, a lot of emphasis is on, I did it from here, I went to this place for an offsite, I attended this training, uh, great speakers.
Yeah,
So
the funniest thing that I have seen is like people doing online courses from Harvard and Stanford and then saying that they're Harvard and Stanford alums.
yeah.
Um, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, like you just said, Dhruv, have kind of focus on the wrong factors here, which is not the actual learning and demonstration of those skills, but just signaling that having certain brand associated with you in any form or fashion. But I think people are very smart. They read through between the lines pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to add one personal anecdote here, Arjun. Back in 2018, I participated, or rather, got myself. I felt this need to learn something for the want of learning, not because I wanted something to reflect on the CV. And I think in the past I'd been guilty. I think when you're sitting for placements in B school, as Ashish said, when we started the conversation, you're thinking about certain factors in life. Let's get started. बाद में देखा जाएगा. I think I for once wanted to do something because I really wanted to learn, and that learning, interestingly, didn't. And I think that's another point to the courses, Arjun, didn't really come only from the course curriculum and what I learned online, but also from the peer network and the peer set that you have, right? Which is such an underrated aspect of what you really get from some of these courses. And I think you know I, I did this program in 2018. It was a program called the Alt MBA by Seth Godin, and I they made it very clear at the beginning. They made one thing very clear: if you are doing this because you're going to flaunt the certificate that you did this, don't enroll. At the end of this program, if you want a certificate, we'll issue it. Our true success in this is if you are able to establish these peer networks and you're going to take away these three learnings, which you're going to continue imbibing in your day-to-day work for the next 5 years at least. And that's the that's how they measure the success rate of their program.
Hmm.
And I understand when if you say something like this to organizations, they'll be like, someone's coming and giving yarn that they learned a lot. But I think the answer lies with us at the end of the day. If you've done the program, what you've learned from it, how you're utilizing the network that you built, how you're giving back to the network that you built, and how you're able to demonstrate that the skills you've picked up are actually adding value to the work that you do.
Very well said. I think the anecdote really helps, and I think there are people who burn their fingers after doing certain degrees and certifications for the wrong reasons and realize that strategy doesn't work anymore. Right? It might work very few times and used to perhaps work more frequently. Today, it's usually not going to be effective. I think we have overshot our time a little bit, and I do have another call, unfortunately, that I have to get to. Otherwise, we have at least 4 or 5 more questions that I would have loved to get answered. What I would say to whoever who could not get their question answered, firstly, apologies that we couldn't get through all of them. There was just a barrage of questions that came towards the end. But do reach out to Dhruv and Ashish on LinkedIn. They are very, very prolific writers on the platform. And if you're not following them already, then please do follow them. You will probably get at least some of the questions. Like I saw a question about personal branding. I saw a question about what it takes to get hired by employers in strategic roles. These kind of things are frequent topics that they both discuss. So please do follow them. And in case you're looking for any personalized support on your transition to your next role, making your next career move, please do check us out at Pivot. So we specialize in that, and that's something we have done with now over 5,000 people. So feel free to check us out at mypivot.work. Um, but last thing I want to say before we wrap up is a big thanks to Dhruv, Ashish, and everybody who joined us today. Thank you so much for taking out time. I think it was a pretty value add session. I think we covered up a lot.